Hello, everyone. Today we have Mr. Tom Lips. First of all, welcome, Tom. Thank you so much for coming in and giving your time and being a part of this blog. I would like to start by giving a quick introduction to the audience about Tom. So Tom has graduated from Dartmouth. He got his undergrad degree from Dartmouth School, and then he did his JD degree from Harvard Law School. Tom has been in the finance service industry after his schooling years, and it's been about 40 years. That's a very long time. He has done a lot. He's achieved a lot throughout this course of time, and he's currently working for a major international investment firm. Tom has been recognized annually by Barron's and Forbes in its highly selective America's Top Financial Advisors list. So congratulations, Tom, for that. And then outside his work, Tom has been very active in a number of community activities in New England and also in Mexico. He's an active mentor to a lot of students with life and professional goals. And in his free time, Tom has an avid passion for art. And so welcome, Tom. Again, thank you so much for coming in and sparing some time to be a part of this. Really appreciate it a lot.
Delighted to be with you.
So Tom, I'll quickly give you a quick background about the blog, like what's the purpose. And then the purpose of the blog is basically to get people to make it a medium, a platform where I can bring in people like you and people who have had a long experiences and learnings throughout their life in their career and all the fields that they've taken up. And then this can become a medium where you can share it so that people like me, youth, not just my age, also people of all ages all around the world can listen to your story and your experiences and, can take something meaningful out of it, which can also personally help them lead a more meaningful life. And you're definitely one of the people who come to my mind based on my personal experiences, who I really look up to. Your experiences, your stories. I've learned a lot personally from you. So yeah, let's get into it, Tom. So the first thing, Tom, I wanted to ask you was, what were some of the disappointments or mistakes that you have faced in your life in the process of achieving what you have today? And then what is your frame of mind when you come across these kinds of setbacks?
That's a great question. But first, Mudit, I want to applaud you for taking on this blog. And I wish in my youth I had the opportunity to observe these kinds of conversations and learn from them. And this goes back to disappointments and mistakes that I made early on. Interestingly, you did not mention in your bio one of the disappointments and mistakes that I made, and that was choosing the wrong profession for the wrong reasons. And let me expand on that because I think that will be helpful to your young audience in particular as they pursue career choices. I went to law school for not terribly compelling reasons. There was a war going on, Vietnam, and rather than being cannon fodder, I chose to delay military service until after law school, which I did. And I served my entire military service in the Pentagon, working for Melvin Laird, Secretary of Defense, and David Packard of Hewlett Packard, Deputy Secretary of Defense, which was one of the great experiences of my lifetime, because it was an extremely able, intellectually powerful group of people. Here I was, a very young second lieutenant who was dealing with generals, writing speeches for Laird and Packard for the Situation Room, for the Cabinet Room. And I grew up very quickly in that environment. But I was an indifferent law student, and I really didn't think through career choices. You go to law school, you complete your military service, I guess you go to a law firm, which I did in San Francisco, and not mentioned in the biography, and I think for good reason. I realized that, and this I was realizing this very quick into the game, that the practice of law was not intellectually and psychologically for me. I was working for a major San Francisco law firm, doing business litigation for very big companies like Boise Cascade Forest Products, Boeing, United Airlines, etc. And I am sure that most people my age would have loved to have changed places with me, but I was unhappy. So what do? I realized I made a mistake in career selection. I had not thought through the following. Tom, what are you good at? More importantly, what are you not good at? What do you like to do? More importantly, what don't you like to do? Where do you want to see yourself? How do you balance the personal and the professional? Do you want to do this for the rest of your life? And I said, no way. I had a very good mentor in San Francisco. The minister, the assistant minister of the Episcopal church that my wife and I attended. We actually taught Sunday school there. He was a Trinity College graduate of all places, Mudit, where I first ran into you. And we talked about career choices, and he had me really thinking through, what do you like to do? What do you not like to do? What are you good at? What are you not good at? And I had always loved the world of higher education. I came to Trinity in 1973 to serve as assistant to the president and legal counsel with the not very well thought through career choice of maybe I'd like to be a college or university president someday. 7 years at Trinity were terrific. People said, where do you work? I said, I work at a country club because life was almost too easy. I had more energy than I knew what to do with there. I learned my squash game. I got great exercise. I enjoyed the environment, but I needed more. And again, I thought through, what are you good at? What do you like to do? What do you say for yourself? I grew up in an investment family, and it took me 2 careers to figure out that I should be in finance and not in law. I started all over as a trainee at a then obscure investment firm by name of Drexel Burnham Lambert, made famous later by Mike Milken and high yield bonds and really doing a fantastic job in the world of finance. And that was in 1981, and I've never looked back, but I've also never forgotten those mistakes, those disappointments. They were failures, but really they weren't. They were mistakes that I learned from. And the key to making a mistake is you'll make them, learn from them, and act from them. So long answer to a good question.
So based on what I understand, Tom, these experiences that you had before actually coming into the finance industry, now when you look back, like, even though we think like this can be like disappointing or something, but for you, in order to realize what your calling was, I think going through those experiences was like very important, right?
You're exactly right. Huge. And so I am very fortunate that I had these disappointments, but mostly fortunate that I took advantage of them. I learned from them. I benefited from them.
And also in that process, you mentioned you had a mentor. So having a mentor throughout your journey when you're starting your years and stuff, who you can talk to, something that's making you happy or not. I feel like people my age or people who are younger, who are starting, having a key, like a good mentor is very critical for all of us, just to really know who, like what's something that, you know, is actually driving us. Because if we don't have someone who we can discuss or talk to, like all this deep stuff, like I feel like a lot of times we end up, you know, saying that we wasted a lot of time until we figure out what we really like.
Absolutely. Find a good mentor or 2 or 3, stay with them, because people who do mentoring typically like to give back. And I have gotten as much pleasure and return from mentoring people like you as I got from earlier mentors of mine. So I would say that one real key takeaway for much of your audience here is the role that a strong, thoughtful, responsible mentor who can figure you out can really, really help you. And there are a lot of people out there who are willing and able to take on.
For sure, 100%. And also, like, another way to look at this could be like, you know, like, again, like it's very easy for us to dismiss the time that we have put in doing something that's not our career or something that doesn't make us happy. But when you look back and look at the years that you spent in these 2 other professions before you actually came into finance, the knowledge that you gained during these times, during these years, and also like right mentors that you came across, do you think that the knowledge that you came across, even though that's not your career now, is that helping you in some way in what you're doing now, like today?
It very definitely has helped me. I grew up in these other professions. I saw a bigger world in these other professions. But probably more importantly, I got to know myself much better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I worked on my shortcomings. I played to my strengths, and I saw a much broader world out there. And I also, I ate a lot of humble pie in making decisions and saying, Tom, you made a mistake. Now learn from it and do something different. And so definitely that was helpful to me.
Okay, because yeah, this is very interesting. Because like people like me and also like college students, a lot of times for so many time we're just wondering, what is something that we can do? Where are we going? There's so much confusion in our heads. Like, how should we take that confusion? Should we be worried about that confusion as to like why do we not have that clarity, or should we just go with the flow and in that process try to discover who we are, try to get right people around us, and then do what makes us happy?
I would say that attitude is everything. I've always felt the power of positive thinking is so important. And also, don't put too much pressure on yourself. The glass should always be half full, not half empty. See the positives, accept the negatives, and don't feel that the burdens of the world are on your own shoulders. And also recognize that change is constant. And today in this world in which you are growing up in, is changed dramatically from the world that I was growing up to say 56 years ago. And so the word is that don't think that your first career choice is going to be your last career choice. It's likely today that you will have 8, 10, 12 different defined careers. And as long as you're learning along the way and being active and positive in all you do, you can see your way through that. And remember that life is really all about the journey and not simply the arrival.
Very nicely said. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Coming to my next question. So in the market, you've been, as we mentioned earlier in your intro, you've been there for 40 years. You have gone through various cycles of market throughout your lifetime. And we also know, like in the market, just as life, there are so many ups and downs, and you have a lot of even more responsibility because you're dealing with someone else's money, and money is something which is important to a lot of people. And that brings up a lot of pressure with you. And also you have consistently performed in your industry at the work that you've been doing. So what has helped you to perform consistent over the years?
I would say a combination of passion for the work and doing the homework intellectually and emotionally is really key. You're right. Managing other people's money is very, very special. And there is psychological as well as professional responsibility. I like to say that we manage people's portfolios. We also manage their expectations. And I also like to say in the world of finance, the world of investment management, may I generalize, a great educational background is a minor in mathematics and a major in history. No numbers, but you also have to understand history. History repeats itself. And one of the lessons that I learned and I share with clients and colleagues is you can see the picture better from 10 feet away as opposed to 10 inches away. And so in working with clients, I remind them and remind my colleagues and myself that our goal in life is not to beat a benchmark, not to outperform the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrials or EFA next month, next 6 months, next year. It's to define the lifetime financial goals and objectives of our clients, be they individuals, be they families, be they institutions. An endowment, a college endowment, it's an immemorial lifetime. Define those lifetime objectives and achieve them over time. And that has nothing to do with beating a benchmark in the short term. So part of it is perspective, passion, and then creating knowledge. But remember, Information is not knowledge, and knowledge is not judgment. You have to have judgment along the way. And frankly, judgment is learning from your mistakes and absorbing everything you can around you, and accepting that, this time it's not different. There's no difference. There's always going to be volatility. There are going to be ups and downs. But if you look from afar, you'll have a much more convincing and secure picture as to what the world will look like. Not next week, not next month, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when 25 years from now, when Mudit is approaching retirement of all things. What's it look like then? That can really be the goals, as opposed to agonizing over the volatile present.
I think you really nicely said, and I've also observed this like about you, like going back to the history books, that's critically important, because a lot of times I feel like people, like younger people, or like people in general, like people are not going back to seeing, or just like finding out what has happened in the past. A lot of times if we go back and study the work that has already been done, we can get a lot of answers. And I think this is something that I've definitely like learned from you just by looking at you. It's not exactly as what you said. This is not something about creating new benchmarks. It's again like delivering the performance, the right output. And if for that, if you have to like go back, look at the history, then why not?
I agree with you. And for example, and as you know, I write a quarterly commentary.
Yeah.
I share this with clients and friends, and I really talk about lessons learned over time. For example, it's not timing the market, it's time in the market. Get invested, stay invested. Investing is not gambling. Gambling, the odds are you play the game, you're going to lose. Investing is you play the game, stay in the game, you're going to win. And how do I know that? Because history demonstrates it. And you look over any prolonged period of time, and you'll see that. So understanding history and having a passion for it, and getting knowledge from information and judgment, good judgment from good knowledge is really the key.
And as you mentioned, like this word judgment, like there's so many times where you would find yourself in these narrow situations by looking at market situation around you, and like where there could be times where you also are not sure as to what the next step could look like, something that's taking away your sleep at night, how like, and so many external factors that you don't have like control of. And I can correlate this to life too. Like even in our day-to-day life, there are so many things where we do not have control of, and we worry about them. These are things that make us stressed, anxious, leading up to like severe health issues, etc. But how do you deal with something that's not under your control while you keep doing something that you really like?
That's a great question, and particularly for your audience, and one that I have agonized over and embraced over time. And part of it is recognizing, accept the fact that you can't control everything out there. You have to go with the flow. But the more you're prepared, the more you are thoughtful, and the more you are embracing the positive as opposed to the negative, and looking back through history and saying, this too shall pass, and understanding what I can control, what I can't, and embracing what I can control, and just accepting that I can't. I mean, otherwise, do I dare go across the street? Well, history suggests I can get across that street safely, so I go. And so I think part of it is you have to have good habits as well. I really believe in exercising the physical body as well as the mind, and exercising the spiritual as well as the physical. And so all of that is creating this kind of serenity around you. And it helps to have good distractions. You mentioned I do art. Art for me is therapy. I get totally engaged in it, and it just takes out the emotions of the moment. So where I am in Mexico in the winter months, my office adjoins my studio, and I can literally go to the right side of the brain and then to the left side of the brain. and then the left side to the right side. And combining the personal and the professional and the emotional as well as the physical is really a key to that. And I tell my colleagues, take a deep breath, count your blessings, and remember, we're all different.
I think this is really nicely said. How you're also saying, like, I've often seen people who are beating themselves to work, like spending so many hours. But then, as you just mentioned, you have to have that personal time where for you, if it's art, if it's working out, or if it's doing something else, which can take your mind away from the work that you're doing, so that actually that's helping you in a way. When you get back to it, your output becomes significant more than just spending more hours to it initially.
That is so true, and a lesson for the youth. And that is, it's quality time.
Yeah.
It's, you need these distractions. You need to get your mind and body in shape, and the self-discipline that goes with that is very much self-fulfilling. I think it's just putting some control around your life, and and don't take it too seriously. By that I mean, see the big picture.
Yeah.
Not right in front of you, but the picture from 10 feet away, and you have a lot more clarity that way.
Another important thing you just mentioned was like just going with the flow, like let go. I feel like people, like personally for me too, like it's hard for someone, it's hard for us to let go. Like a lot of times we as humans always want control of what's happening around us. We need to know what's happening, what's the next thing that's going to happen, what's something that would happen in like a month's time or a year's time. We just need control, like as humans, like for a lot of things. So when for you did you realize this letting go thing is very critical for you to actually have that peace of mind, so that you can like move forward with like more peace?
Uh, I think it came gradually, but I think it came after really thinking through some of these broad questions, issues that you've been addressing. And I think you are doing a great service to your listeners, seriously, because this is really rarely talked about, particularly in these circles of young people. But and I think that's where a mentor can really help as well, and just being informed in what you're doing, and seeing that broad picture. Great quote from Lou Holtz, previously the football coach at Notre Dame, and a real observer of mankind. And he tells his son, don't sit on the sidelines. Don't let life pass you by. I was asked, do you have any regrets of your college years? I said, yes, I spent too much time in the library stacks. Get out there, experience life, take a big deep breath, go for the gusto, as the old Schlitz commercial. You only pass around life once, embrace it. And so I think it's just seeing a bigger picture, and just appreciating all the blessings out there, and that every one of us is different. Define who you are, embrace what you are, and count your blessings and go forward. And don't take life too seriously.
Exactly as you said. And I feel like I keep coming back to this point, like having the right mentor and, like listening to right people who inspire you, whose stories inspire you. I think it's critically important, because if you're not doing that, we're not giving ourselves like an opportunity, because there's like a set cycle, set norms that are defined in the society. You have to do this, you go to school, you go to college, you're being told, and you're doing that, you're being told what and you do it. So the only thing is for you to come out of that cycle and actually practice who you are, your genius, your capability, get that out of it. I feel like personally for me, listening to right people like you, hearing your stories, because that motivate us. And then once we listen to learnings, because for you that factor was at certain point of time for you when that happened, and then actually you realize that you're doing so much better, like there's nothing that's holding you back. And I feel like we all are held back through what we're being told, like throughout, and no one's like trying to experiment, as you said.
That's exactly right. And I think part of it is just accepting the fact that, particularly when you are young, as there's an expression, I think it was Eric Hoffer, a great writer, no longer with us. He said, the 20-year-older thinks he knows everything. The 40-year-older knows he knows nothing. Now, By that, I mean, you learn along the way, and just keep your mind open and engaged, and don't be too self-critical, and just, see that world out there and try to absorb it and understand what it is telling you, what it is teaching you, and be prepared for some left turns along the way as well. But there's nothing wrong with that. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah, I definitely believe too, like learning is a continuous process. It never ends, like with age or any number, like you keep learning every day. There's something new that you can learn. And as younger people, we tend to often think that we know more than others. And then that also in some way sometimes hinders our ability to, absorb other good things from other people around us, because we already think we have what, like someone else might have. We already have that. Why look at someone else, or why learn from them, because that would just put me down. So there's always that factor coming into mind, which again, like that gets me to another question. Like you throughout have been a big proponent of continuous learning, and you have spent so much time in nurturing your knowledge. What are some of the things or habits that you developed during your course of life, and you learn, which are critical for you, so that you can keep at this journey of learning?
I would say the key thing that I've learned along the way is expand your horizons, expand your learning. The liberating education. It's not liberal education, it's liberating education. Before practicing law and after my military duty, my wife and I spent 4.5 months and traveled around the world. And 35 air legs, I don't know how many countries, including India and other garden spots of the world. And we learned from those experiences, from the different people we met, these different cultures, these different ways of living, really uplifting. The other thing I learned is put your step forward, venture into the unknown, try things out. People say, well, Tom, how do I start painting? Throw paint on the canvas.
Mhm.
Throw paint on the canvas and start. John Adams, second president of the United States. When do I learn? I learn when I sit at my desk and I put a pencil to paper and I start writing. That's when I learn. Winston Churchill, why do you do your painting? And he was a very accomplished painter. I don't know if you know that. He said, I do my painting because it is therapy.
Mhm. Yeah.
It expands my horizon. It absorbs my soul. So all of this, I think, is just getting out and experiencing life, and understand that only when you're out there doing things are you learning. And get out of the library stacks, get out of your small world. Uh, you know, turn that computer off and stop playing those games and experience life on the run. That kind of thing.
Again, there's another really good point that you just mentioned. Like for someone like me, if I want to start doing art, I'm gonna have so many different thoughts saying I'm not good at this, I'm not gonna start because I'm not good, so I'm not gonna even waste my time. But you just telling, just take a paper, throw some paint, and just experiment. Who knows? Like maybe you start liking, maybe it becomes, you have to allow yourself to at least try it. Like so many times we're not even letting ourselves like try a new thing, just thinking that we're not gonna succeed. Like this success is such a term that not only is hindering us like from doing like so many different things which we might be actually better at. Like we never know, we might even never know because we're not even trying that in the first place. But then again, this is like personally, I again feel that we are, for us to actually experience or experiment, we need to get out of these set norms that are there in life, and then experiment and then build upon it based on when we like how we discover ourselves on the journey.
Exactly. I mean, as you and the coach discussed, this whole fear of failure, fear of something I am not comfortable doing. Embrace it and don't fear it, and you'll learn from it. And I think that is so important. That's why, 2 careers later, I found fulfillment. I would not have found that fulfillment but for the disappointments, for the mistakes made, and learning from them. And change, when you embrace it, can often be good, not bad.
Exactly. yeah, I feel like we need to allow ourselves more, to have a chance to also fail. Like failing is not as bad as we think it is, because a lot of times we're just like hindering ourselves. We're just scared of doing something because we think we're going to fail in front of others, and that's just like stopping ourselves from progressing.
And then you have to define what failure really is.
Exactly, yeah.
And learning from a mistake is not failure. The mistake is not failure. Just don't repeat the mistakes.
Exactly. If you repeat it, then that's something then you're not learning. You have to always be open to learn. This brings me to the last question, Tom. This has been a very informative session, and to just like the youth around, if there's some advice or if there's something that you would like to say, that can help them, if they listen, that can like help them to lead their lives in a more meaningful manner based on your experience, because you have seen life way more than us, like so many more years than us. So you have that knowledge. We are people, we are younger, we need to listen and look up to your experiences and see how we can incorporate them and for ourselves.
Good question. And a lot of ways you can go. One of the great people in my life was my father. And what I learned from him was treat everybody with respect. Don't judge. Be kind to the other person. Be fair to the other person. Embrace differences. And be out there helping others. And he said, and I was one of 7 siblings. And he said, and he was a very good investor. And he would tell his children, the best investment I could ever make is giving my daughter and sons, 6 boys, and then my sister Linda, the best education they're equipped to handle. And then use that education and see a broader world out there. I also say that surround yourself with good people, good clients, good colleagues, good friends who have good culture, who are truthful, honest, committed, hardworking, helping the other guy. And as my father said, whatever you do in life, make a contribution. Make a contribution. You'll be remembered for your contributions and not by who you are. And you will be remembered by who you were as to who you thought you should be. And so make it all count. So, and I would say the mentoring side is so important. Find people around you, people who had experiences, have those values that I was talking about, and can show you the way. Because we always need someone with a light out in front of us who has taken that path and knows where to head. And so those are some thoughts for your listeners.
Amazing. This is great. Thank you so much for sharing this. And Tom, again, like I would really like to thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here and talk and share your journey, stories, learnings, thoughts for the youth. Thank you so much again. Yeah.
My pleasure, Mudit, and thanks to you for doing good work for your audience. God bless.
Thank you.